Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Venus and today I want to talk about BookTok. So I personally don't even use BookTok. It's just another social media platform that will suck me into the black hole. But the BookTok influence has definitely trickled over into Bookstagram. I still see the reels on Bookstagram, and even at my local Barnes & Noble, when I walk in, there's a huge table right up front that is nothing but BookTok books. And I have been influenced a time or two or more to purchase some of these books. So I want to talk about 25 of them that I have read and whether they are worth the read, worth the hype, or neither one. So the first book I want to talk about is Ice Planet Barbarians by Ruby Dixon. This book is everywhere right now. I started seeing them even in Target lately, which is pretty surprising to me. But I actually did not start reading this book because of BookTok. I saw Daniel Green, one of my favorite booktubers, do a review about it, and it was hilarious. It was so entertaining. I will link that below for you to watch it because it's definitely worth a watch. But he did a review about it and I was like, I think I need to check this out. This book is, I'm like blushing thinking about it. This book is a sci-fi alien erotica romance book. There are 22 books in this series. So if you are into the story, there's 22 of them to pick from, to go through and binge. But basically it starts off, there's a group of women that have been abducted. They're in a spaceship. Women are being picked off one by one. They don't know why. So eventually the spaceship crashes, and I think her name's Georgia or Georgie, is the main character, and she has been assigned to go and find help for them. And meanwhile, my nerdy sci-fi self is thinking, can you guys breathe in this atmosphere? Is the water safe? I'm thinking of all these no, it doesn't matter in this book, clearly. But Georgia goes off to try to find help, and she comes across an alien, and clearly there are communication issues, but they do manage to communicate enough to get it in, and steaminess ensues. And so I DNF'd it, but not because it was horrible, mostly because my brain just couldn't wrap around the steaminess with an alien. I just couldn't do it, because I don't mind steamy books at all. That's not a problem. But yeah, so I couldn't do it. So I DNF'd it. Is this book worth the hype? I'm gonna say it is, just for pure entertainment if you're curious. So just, if you're interested, just go for it. Just go for it. It is available on Kindle Unlimited, so if you have Kindle Unlimited, you don't necessarily have to purchase the book to see what it's about. Moving on. The next book is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Tara Jenkins Reid, and I love this book. It is so good. It is about, quick synopsis, Monique, she is a reporter. She has been assigned to take over writing the life story of Evelyn Hugo, who is a huge movie star back in, I believe, the 50s or 60s. There's already a huge red flag, because you're like, why is this specific reporter being requested to write her life story? So huge red flag there. But the story of Evelyn Hugo and her 7 husbands and the love of her life, which I'm not going to go into detail about that, but there's kind of a little twist in this. It's beautiful. It gives you all the Hollywood 50s, 60s vibes, and just you almost believe Evelyn Hugo is a real, true movie star. I loved every second of it. And of course, at the end, you find out why Monique was chosen to write her life story. And it's heartbreaking and beautiful at the same time. Tara Jenkins Reid just has such a beautiful way of writing stories. I loved it so much. And so for this one, I definitely believe it's worth the hype and worth the read. The next book on this list is also by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and it is called Daisy Jones and the Six, and I loved this one as well. I love books that center around musicians, and that's exactly what this book is. It is about a group, Daisy Jones and the Six, and I think they're 70-ish rock group. It is literally sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It is great. It's so good. It's written in like an interview style. So some people don't like actually reading the book because it's written in kind of a weird way. But if you don't like that, definitely listen to the audiobook. The audiobook is fantastic. So yes, I absolutely think this book is worth the hype and worth the read. So absolutely. And now going into another Taylor Jenkins Reid book that I don't think is worth the hype or the read is Malibu Rising. I'm sorry. I did not like that book. I thought it was super boring. It's about a group of siblings who are raised by like this, I think he's a musician, a really well-known musician, but he's pretty much a deadbeat absentee. Papa was a Rolling Stone type dad. And so it goes through their upbringing. And I think this book takes place all in one day during a specific day when there's like a fire in Malibu. And I don't know, it was just boring to me. I didn't really enjoy it. So for this one, I'm going to say no, not worth the read or worth the hype. The next book is From Blood and Ash by Jennifer Armentrout. This is a fantasy book. It was good. I did enjoy it. I will say the sequel I did not enjoy as much. And there's a third book, which I haven't even read yet. These are really thick. They're really thick books, and I don't feel like they need to be this long. But this book is basically about, I think her name is Poppy. Poppy is like the chosen one in this kingdom, and there's a bunch of politics involved. She can't like be touched. I think she wears a mask. I can't remember. It's been a while since I've read this. She has to cover herself up, and there's like this ascension that has to happen, and she's been assigned a guard named Hawk, who is basically ends up being the love interest. I don't know if that's a spoiler. It's probably no, it's on the back. But this book has a lot of twists to it, especially at the end. I want to say like the last 100 pages were so amazing. So I do feel like this specific book is worth the hype and absolutely worth the read if you like fantasy. There's some like paranormal stuff, supernatural things going on in it as well. And I enjoyed it. Now, I can't say the same, like I said, about the sequels, but overall, this book I really did enjoy. The next book is Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. And I did not like this book. It was boring. I'm sorry, unpopular opinion. Yeah, this book was boring to me. It has a lot of potential. Obviously, a lot of people love this book. There's a Netflix series about it. So it's huge. Personally, I just found it kind of boring. I don't know. My favorite part, so what is this about? It's kind of even hard to explain. There's like this thing called, I think, the Shadow Fold, where there's like two parts of their world. One part on the Shadow Fold world is like full of like darkness and creatures that basically like eat humans. And there's a group of people, almost like a military type group, that go over and try to, I don't even know what they were trying to do in the beginning, to get over there or something. And the main character, what is her name? Alina ends up trying to save her friend, her childhood friend, and she shows like this massive power that she has. So immediately she's whisked off to go train, I think it's called train as a Grisha, I think. She's whisked off to go train under the leadership of the Darkling. And I will say, he was my favorite character. I loved the villain more in this book than anything. So I think it's overhyped. I think if you like fantasy, give it a try. Definitely, maybe, perhaps worth the read. I'm indifferent on this one. I'm indifferent. It's super popular. So enter at your own risk. But I didn't enjoy it at all. And I'm probably going to be unhauling this pretty soon, because I don't feel like reading the other ones. But there is another Leigh Bardugo book on this list, and that is The Ninth House. And I loved this book. Loved this book. And I will say, for Shadow and the Bone, I did overall enjoy the writing. I think the story was just boring to me. But with The Ninth House, I absolutely loved it. Main character name is Alex. She is a survivor of like this homicide, multiple homicide. She's given almost like a second chance at life, and these like wealthy benefactors have given her a full ride to Yale, with the caveat that she has to kind of follow, almost spy on these secret societies of Yale. And in these secret societies, there's almost like this cultish like rituals happening, and it just goes from there. And I love this book so much, and I'm gonna post a picture. She just released the cover of the second book, and it's super creepy, and I love everything about it. I have no idea what it references, because I honestly can't really remember too much about the ninth house. I'm gonna have to reread it, but this is a super creepy cover. Next book, The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I binged this book. I binged this series. I definitely think it's worth the hype and the read. But, so this is, I don't know if this is considered young adult fantasy. It's fantasy. I think it's young adult fantasy. Yes, yeah, because her first adult book is coming out soon. It's almost like, I don't even know how to describe this. It's like a fairy bully romance book. It sucks you in though. Oh my gosh. So it's about fairies and this girl whose parents are basically murdered, and she gets sucked into like this fairy world. And they're so mean. They are so mean. Even the lead like hero, potential love interest, I'll say, is such a jerk. But I got sucked in. I do. I like it. Yes, it's worth the read and worth the hype. Guilty pleasure is what I'll say. There's 3 of these. It's a trilogy. So my neighbor is mowing his lawn, so I'm sorry if you can hear that. The next book is The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and I talked about this I think in a wrap-up, so I don't want to go too much into it, but I didn't really enjoy it that much. This is way overhyped, and I don't even think it's really worth the read. It's okay, but I'm indifferent for this one too. But basically, this is a young adult like mystery. The main character, she is like poor, and all of a sudden this like billionaire dies and leaves her all of his money, but she has to live in the house for like a year, and his family lives there, and he left all these like clues for them to follow to try to figure out why she was given all this money. There's like a weird, almost love triangle starting to happen. I don't know. I didn't like it. I think it's definitely overhyped, and I personally wouldn't even say it's worth the read. The next book is the like Shadow Hunter series by Cassandra Clare, and I loved it. I read Mortal Instruments, and I've read it twice. Actually, that's a trilogy. I think it was a show at one point and also a movie. The movie wasn't all that great, but I still watched it. I didn't watch the show though, but I loved it. I loved it. Mortal Instruments, 100%. I have not read The Infernal Devices, which is like a prequel to it, because I'm saving it. I know, I'm such a dork. I'm gonna say absolutely worth the hype and worth the read. It's young adult fantasy. There's like, I think I love it when there's vampires and werewolves and demons, and I think, demons and angels, and just love all of that. And they're not super long. They're like really quick reads. I binged them back to back each time that I read them. And yeah, it's a fun read. If you're looking for like a fun, quick, like young adult fantasy read, I definitely recommend it. I think it's worth the hype. And I'm actually really looking forward to reading The Infernal Devices, because apparently it takes place in the Victorian age in London, which sounds great to me, because it also has, I'm assuming, vampires and werewolves, and are there werewolves in it? I can't remember, but it's still good. All the supernatural elements. It's a fun time. So I highly recommend this. Definitely worth the hype and worth the read. 100%. The next book is A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Brigid Kemmerer. Sorry if I butchered that. I love this book. I did not love the second and third books at all, but I really, really did love this book. I read this book so quickly. It is a Beauty and Beast retelling. fantasy, pretty sure it's young adult, and it's so good. It was so good. Oh, I love this book. It's so frustrating thinking about it though, because the second and third books I hated. Oh gosh, the third one even more. The Harper, who is one of the main characters, she has cerebral palsy, and great representation in this book for her. She's so strong and doesn't allow that to get in her way at all. And then the Prince Ren lives in this kingdom. He has been cursed, and he has to relive his 18th birthday until he finds a girl to fall in love with him. So this book is a fantasy. It's a portal fantasy. So some of it takes place in like our real world, and then some of it takes place in like this fantasy magical world. So it's good. It sucks you in. It's so good. So Harper ends up getting pulled into this portal, into this magical fantasy world, and Prince Ren has to somehow try to make her fall in love with him, and she just, of course, wants to get back home, and the story evolves, and it is such a good book. But don't bother reading the second and third. So yes, this is worth the read. Yes, it's worth the hype, but no need to read the rest of the series. The next book is Sadie by Courtney Summers. This is like a thriller mystery, and it is phenomenal. This was one of my favorite audiobooks of all time. It is so good. It is written in a podcast, like true crime kind of way. It was just very unique. I think that's why I loved it so much. And listening to the audiobook, there's like a full cast of characters. So basically, Sadie is on this mission, or vengeance mission, to find the murderer of her sister. And so there's interviews and kind of her being tracked by this podcast reporter type person. And it's so good. It's definitely worth the hype and 100% worth the read. So, and please, if you do want to check this out, I would definitely do the audiobook, because it was phenomenal. One of my favorites, like I said, of all time so far. The next book is The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. I love this book. It is it is enemies to lovers and office romance tropes. And it's so good. It's so good. I love this book. I could not put it down. There is a scene in it, in the elevator, that I still think about to this day, because it was so good. And the movie did not do that scene justice at all. The movie was cute. It was okay, but I was so upset about that scene. So I definitely recommend this. It's a rom-com. It's cute. Definitely gives you like that enemies to lovers office romance vibes. And it's good. Definitely worth the hype and worth the read. So I highly recommend this one. The next one is another rom-com. It is The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. They are like the magic duo. I definitely enjoyed this book. I don't think it's worth the hype, because I feel like there are definitely other rom-com books that are better than this one, especially written by Christina Lauren. But I do think it's worth the read. It's funny. The two main characters, they're enemies, so another enemies to lovers trope, and they are at I think the main character's name is Olive, her sister's wedding, and everyone in the wedding party gets food poisoning. So the two main characters end up getting to take their tickets to go to, I believe, Hawaii for their wedding or their honeymoon, so that the tickets don't get wasted. So, of course, romance ensues, and there's other things going on. I think Olive's boss ends up showing up, and she fake dates at some point. I can't remember everything that happens, but it's cute. Definitely worth the read, but I do feel like it's overhyped. It wasn't like amazing. It was just cute. The next book is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Hallie Jackson. This is a young adult thriller book, and it was good. It was good. It was really good. The main character, Pip, she is doing like a school project and decides to investigate the murder of a local girl that also went to her school named Andy, and Pip's neighbor's brother was accused of the murder. So she's trying to just kind of do a school project, figure out what happened, because she doesn't feel like he did it. And as she does her investigation, a whole bunch of other like little town secrets are revealed. There's a really cool twist at the end, and just a lot of things going on in this book that really made it super enjoyable and unputdownable. It was unputdownable. And yeah, worth the read and worth the hype. For sure on this one, absolutely. So the next book on this list is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. And I am gonna definitely say this one was way overhyped. I did not enjoy this one. It was so boring. Beautifully written, but very boring to me. So it's about Addie. She is born in the 1700s in France, and she wants to be free to do what she wants to do. She doesn't want to get married to this old guy or some dude in her village. So she wants to, you know, go and live her life the way she wants to. She ends up making this deal with this, like, they don't call him a devil in the book, but I just pictured him as the devil. But she makes a deal with this supernatural being who gives her basically immortality. And there's a caveat to it, of course. No one's going to remember her. Every person that she meets doesn't remember her. So it bounces back and forth from the kind of her life starting from the 1700s up until I think it was present time. But it bounces back and forth from timelines. And I can see where people love this book. I can see it. The writing was very beautiful. You know, I do like V.E. Schwab's books. But yeah, this one I just didn't like it at all. But people love this book. I'm going to say it's overhyped. Worth the read? I think you should read it. I think it is worth the read. Because for some people it just, you know, it was absolutely beautiful and they were crying. And then for some it was boring. It was boring for me. So I think it's overhyped. But I do think it's worth the read. I think you should at least try it in this case. Absolutely. I would say that. The next two books are by Colleen Hoover. She, of course, is all over the place. And the first one is going to be It Ends With Us. And I loved that book. I loved it. You either absolutely hate this book or you absolutely love it, and I loved it. I would say there are definitely trigger warnings. I'm not going to say what they are because I feel like for me, the biggest shock to this book is I went into it absolutely knowing nothing about it. I had no idea what it was about. When a specific scene happened, I was like shocked. It shocked me. I had to read it like a couple times. Like, what? And I just remember even the opening scene. I mean, Colleen Hoover is like known for just insta love, but the way that she writes it, I'm like, I believe it. I'm like, oh wow, yeah, okay, I can see that happening. And I think the opening scene is on a rooftop with two of the main characters. And I got sucked in. I read this book in one day. Cried so hard. I cried like really bad. I still like remember it. I had like a crying hangover. That's how bad it was. Yeah, I'm going to say worth the read and worth the hype. I'm a Colleen Hoover fan. What can I say? Definitely go for it. But if you have triggers, please check those out because it does definitely have triggers in it. I do recommend that. The next book by her is Verity, and I enjoyed this one. This one is not one of my favorite Colleen Hoover books, but yes, I do think it's worth the read and worth the hype. Do I ever think it's worth the hype? I think it's worth the read, but not worth the hype. It's okay. It was okay. It's about this writer who has been given the opportunity to go and finish a book for a woman who's basically disabled. She's no longer able to write. And there's a bunch of books that I can't remember if it's the publisher or her family who want to get these books written. And she's left a bunch of like her notes around in her office, and the main character finds her memoirs and a whole bunch of crazy secrets ensue, and the ending is wild. It was good. I mean, I enjoyed it. Definitely worth the read, like I said, but I think it was a little bit overhyped. The next book is The Atlas Six by Olivia Blake, and I DNF'd this book. I wanted to love this book. The premise of it sounded so good to me. There's 6 people with like magical abilities. They're chosen by this guy to come to this like, almost like not a museum. It has a bunch of antiques and artifacts that are very, very important. And they come to this place, and I think they're supposed to keep it like safe or something, or guard it. And only 5 of them will be able to get initiated, and 1 will be eliminated. So you don't know whether if that one person is going to be murdered or what. But the 6 characters, when I started reading it, I was like, oh, this is really this is cool. Like, you know, you go through each character's secret abilities, but there was something about the writing that I just wasn't connecting with, and I didn't really like any of the characters at all. There was two of them that were kind of school arch nemesis, and they constantly were like, you know, bickering at each other, and it just became kind of annoying. I know that this book was independently published initially, and now it's been picked up by Tor, I believe. So I don't know if the editing has changed some of it, because I see why people love this book. I see the potential in it. And I might even try to reread it now that it's been, I guess, edited, if there were really any changes made to it. Let me know in the comments if you read kind of both versions, the independent one and the newly published one, and if it's worth it, because this one I'm on the fence on. I would say give it a try. I can't even really say because I DNF'd it, but not because it was horrible. It was just something about the writing that just wasn't clicking with me. So this one I'm gonna leave up in the air to your own discretion. And if you read it, let me know. Let me know, should I give it another try? The next book is The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune, and I think this book is overhyped. I thought it was cute. I gave it like 3 stars. It was cute. I loved the main character. I think his name was Linus. I feel like he was funny. He had like this dry humor, and I really enjoyed his character. I think it was the kids that got on my nerves. So Linus is a caseworker at like for magical youth, and he's been assigned to go and check on these 6 children that could potentially, I think, bring the end of the world, or something like that. I can't remember. But he goes to this like little magical island where these children are, and these orphan children are, and their caretaker is there, and there's like a cute love story that happens, and you know, the kids each all have their own little personalities, but some of them just really got on my nerves. And honestly, mainly it was the devil. There's a little one that's like the devil, like really the devil. And his character, every time he was on I didn't like it. So overhyped, that's all I'm gonna say. I think it's overhyped. Do I think it's worth the read? Borrow it from the library. It's a beautiful cover. I will say, beautiful cover. But it was overhyped for me. I'm sorry. The next book is The Love Hypothesis by Hazelwood. I loved it. Everybody talked about it last year. It was so huge last year. And definitely worth it. Worth the read and worth the hype. It's so good. It takes place in like the STEM academic environment. It's a, you know, fake dating romance. It's so cute. There's like one steamy scene in it, and it's like way late in the book, but it's worth it because there's so much angst and build up and hilarity that happens. And yes, I think this is worth the read and worth the hype. 100%. I gave this book, I think I gave it 4 stars. And the last 2 books are Beach Read and People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. Emily Henry is definitely becoming one of my favorite authors, romance authors. I enjoyed both of these books. I gave them both 5 stars. They were so good. So Beach Read is about 2 authors that are having writer's block. I think they went to school together. They knew each other. And they end up like trying to get away, and they're staying in beach houses that are literally right next to each other. And so they come up with an idea to try to help kind of curb this writer's block, is switch genres. So the main female lead, I can't remember her name, she's, I think, romance author. And then the male lead, he writes like hard-hitting literary books. And so they switch. And then they come up with all these like cute like outings to get ideas for their books. And it's so cute. It is so good. I loved it so much. There's like a raining scene. I don't know, this just popped into my mind. There's a scene in this with rain that I loved. I feel like I need to reread this. I feel like I need to reread it. It was 5 stars. People We Meet on Vacation, main character, I feel like she's like a travel vlogger or something. I don't know, but she's not in love with her life right now. And her best friend, they go on annual trips, vacations together for, I want to say, the last 10 years, except something happened the last time that they went on vacation. So the main character wants to go on vacation one last time with him, and yeah, friends to lovers trope. And it's done so well. So, so good. You know, these books aren't even really that steamy, but it's the story. It's the story and the characters, and you believe it. I really believed the love stories in both of these books. So Emily Henry, I highly recommend. Both of these are worth the read and worth the hype. She has a new book coming out called Book Lovers. I am so mad NetGalley was not gracious enough to approve an arc for me, but I'm not cool enough quite yet for romance arcs. That's fine. But yeah, Book Lovers is coming out, I think, at some point soon, and I'm super excited about it. But yes, 25 books. Highly recommended by BookTok. So can we trust BookTok? I'm going to say yeah. I've gotten some really good recommendations from BookTok. The table at Barnes & Noble, the reels on Bookstagram, even though I'm not even on BookTok. I don't even look at it, but I definitely, yeah, I've read a lot of great books. A lot of them have been 4- and 5-star books. So, you know, enter at your own risk, basically. But that's all I got for you guys. This is a long one. I am sorry. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I hope you have found some interest in some of these books and, you know, check them out and like them just as much as I have. If not, I'm sorry. But until next time, I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I will see you again soon. See ya.